Again, good afternoon, everyone. Now, at this point, since by being here in this webinar, thank you for attending, by the way. I'm pretty sure you already have an idea that you want to implement SAP Fiori, or at least you're interested in doing so. I can imagine that you have four burning questions on how to start your Fiori journey. The first one is, what Fiori apps do I need? Second one, what are my target devices? The third one, what are my deployment options? And the fourth one, what are my hardware and software requirements? I'll start with the first bullet. What Fiori apps do I need? Okay, to answer that question, let me first ask you, what systems do you currently have in your SAP landscape? If you have any of the listed systems in the screen right now, SAP ERP, EHP 7 or 8, S4HANA from 1503, the first version, until the latest 1909, then you have already met one of the requirements, software requirements of running SAP Fiori. But let me add here that SAP Fiori also works for other business suite products like CRM, PLM, SRM, and it also works for Business One and BW for HANA or BW on HANA. But our focus today will be on these two products in our screen. Okay, let me start with the available tools that can help you decide what Fiori apps you will need. The first one that I will discuss is probably already familiar to some of you because SAP has been promoting this for quite some time now, maybe 2 to 3 years already. It's called the SAP Innovation and Optimization Pathfinder, or Pathfinder for short. It comes in two versions. Sorry, two editions. First one is IT edition in this screen. Basically, this report tells us, based on your system usage, what innovations can you do to your system. But since our topic is just for Fiori, I'll go straight to the part where it will tell you what Fiori apps can your business use based on your usage. In this screen, you will see that they have recommendations for finance, HR, sourcing, and so on. Because in this sample company, they have transactions related to these fields. Okay. For each area, it shows a line of business. It shows you two options. The first option is for you. It tells you that you have two Fiori applications applicable to your usage based on your current version and database. Because Fiori not only runs on SAP HANA, but it can also run on what we call as any DB, or the databases that are supported by SAP or that run SAP, like DB2, Oracle, ASE, MS SQL. These databases also support Fiori, but they only have a limitation. You have a limited number of apps as compared to if you're running SAP HANA already, whether Suite on HANA or S4 HANA, you have a choice of 20 for SAP HANA. But let me highlight to you that this is the ERP version of the report. It means that whoever submitted the usage report for this system is running on an ERP version on SAP ERP. Which leads me to the next example. The S4HANA version. In this example, the customer or sample customer uploaded a report containing transactions for their current S4H system. In this report, it shows you that for your current S4HANA version, the customer has a choice of 109 apps, Fiori apps for finance. But if they upgrade to the latest or 1909 at this moment version of S4HANA, they have these many choices, 157. Okay, for more info on this, you can go and click to www.sap.com/pathfinder. It will show you a how-to guide, what prerequisites that you need to meet, and what the process is to request for a Pathfinder report. The process for requesting is simple, but you have to meet some requirements, which your in-house team can do, or you can ask Kaisa to help you out. And then you have to wait for 5 business days before SAP will revert to you to give you the report. The next version of Pathfinder or edition is for LOBs. This one is a report specifically tailored for a specific line of business. You have the solely for finance, for sales, for procurement, manufacturing, supply chain, and asset management. These are the 6 currently supported LOBs for this edition of Pathfinder. The difference is that for this, aside from it being more focused on the LOBs, they give more detail. And for the Fiori section, you can see that they even give you, in terms of stars, number of stars, how popular the apps are and which are applicable to you. If you click on next steps, you will be brought to a link showing you details on how to implement SAP Fiori, but I'll get to that later. Then next we have the BSR, or the Business Suite Recommendations for S4HANA. This report is mainly intended for those who are already decided to go to S4HANA. Pathfinder is applicable if you still want to stay in R3, but if you're really gunning for S4HANA, you could request this report. This also has a specific section for Fiori. It's quite similar to Pathfinder for LOB in a sense that it shows you, based on your usage, which are the applicable scenarios when you convert to S4HANA, and the popularity of the Fiori apps that they are recommending to you. To get more info on this, all you need to do is go to www.s4hana.com, and it will also give you details on how to implement and how to request. But essentially, the process is the same with Pathfinder. You just have to meet a different set of requirements. Next, you have the option to choose to request for an SAP Fiori Apps Recommendation Report, or the FAR. This one is also based on your system usage, but it goes straight to the point and recommend to you Fiori apps that they recommend based on your usage. Let me highlight also that with Pathfinder, with Fiori apps and BSR, the recommendations given by SAP is specific to the usage report that you will upload to their system, to the portal. It's possible that if you upload a report based on February transactions, and the result will be different when you upload a report generated from March transactions or December transactions. So if you want, you can request any of this report and the other previously mentioned reports based on the timing that you want. If you want a more accurate or maybe a better picture, maybe you can choose to upload end of the year usage or maybe after a critical quarter. But as far as I know, there's no limit to the number of reports that you can request from SAP. Okay, like with Pathfinder, the Fiori apps recommendations are grouped into LOBs and separated into the database where the system is running in any DB or in an SAP HANA. Again, if you click on these links, you will be brought to a reference site, which I will discuss after this. But the link to get this report is this: www.sap.com/FAR. And finally, we have the FA library or Fiori Apps library. This is quite similar to the FAR in a sense that it focuses mainly on the Fiori apps, but this is different in the sense that this is self-service. You have the option to play around with the search options, search by backend, business suite, or Fiori apps, and other types. And then if you click them, you can choose depending on line of business or availability. You can type in keywords like purchase order, purchase requisition, and then it will show you a list of the available apps, and then you will click them to get more details. But I'll get a bit on that later. Now for all these tools, process is the same. For each report, they have a set of prerequisites that you have to meet or apply. Each site gives a guide, and then if you have already met them, the prerequisites, you can then extract the required information and reports and then upload to SAP's portal. And then wait for 5 days, business days, for SAP to get back to you with the report, and then you can analyze that report, review the recommendations, and then decide if you will follow what they recommend, and then formulate an action plan, scheduling, um, resource gathering, research, and all that. And the first next will be to implement and to activate those Fiori apps. All through this cycle, Kaisa can help you. You don't have to worry about being overwhelmed with the tasks. You just reach out to us and we will help you in all stages of your Fiori journey or planning for your Fiori journey. Next question is, what are my target devices? Where can I use Fiori? Fiori can be used or consumed using three different devices: the desktop, the mobile phone, and the tablet. If you're using Fiori on tablets or mobile phones, all you need to do is download the Fiori client software, which is supported on iOS and Android. For the desktop, your system should meet the minimum requirements for the browser. You can refer to the notes below to get more details on support information and operating systems in browsers and mobile device OS information. Later on, I will show you in one of the slides how to determine if a Fiori app is supported on the device that you want to use. Okay, next question. What are my deployment options? In a nutshell, there are about two recommendations for deploying the Fiori front-end server, or FES, as referred to in the diagrams in this slide deck or even in web. First, for S4HANA, SAP recommends that you go with the embedded SAP FES. It means that the Fiori front end and the S4HANA back end are in just one system ID, one system. Not just one server, but one system. Next is using SAP FES as a central hub. This is applicable mainly for SAP Business Suite products, ERP, CRM, and so on. This slide shows you the difference between embedded and hub setups of Fiori. As mentioned earlier in the previous slide, in one system you have the SAP backend and the Fiori FES. If in standalone, you have two systems, the backend and the front end. You can set up these two systems in one server or two servers. It's depending on your resource availability, but essentially these are two systems. So one SID, one SID. Another one is through the SAP Cloud Platform. You can have an on-premise SAP backend and connect to the cloud hosted front end to avail of the Fiori apps. But in between, you need to install a cloud connector. For S4HANA, you have the option to use S4HANA Cloud, which automatically has an embedded S4HANA, or in your on-premise systems, you have the option to go with the embedded option or the standalone option for Fiori ES, Fiori FES. Okay, now let's discuss the scenarios for running Fiori. The first scenario is the business suite scenario. If in your landscape you only have business suite servers, systems, and you want to use Fiori, you will install SAP Fiori FES and connect your business suite systems to the said server. Of course, you just have to make sure that the system requirements are met. But generally, once you install the SAP Fiori's front-end server, it can support these systems almost right away. Now, what if you decide to implement an S4HANA in your current system? It is possible to still use the Fiori FES. You just have to upgrade the FES so that it will support the new S4HANA backend. Next, what if you decide to install another S4HANA system to your existing Business Suite plus S4HANA landscape? As of the moment, the Fiori front-end server can only support one S4HANA backend to mix with the other non-S4HANA systems. SAP's recommendation for this is for you to install the new S4HANA system with an embedded Fiori FES, and then integrate it into the landscape by adding a custom tile here with a URL that points to the portal or the launchpad of the Fiori of this new system. Now, in case that your system has multiple S4HANA, not just one and two, but or two or more, SAP recommends that you use embedded deployment scenario or option. Now, in each S4HANA system, install or you need to install an embedded FES so that they will work more cohesively with the respective backend, and you don't have to worry about dependencies between mixed landscape. Technically, it is also still possible to have multiple S4HANA systems connecting to a central hub, just like in the previous slide. But what you need to do is create specific custom tiles in the Fiori Launchpad of the front-end server acting as a central hub, and each tile will point to the different S4HANA systems. Basically, an expansion of this current setup. And lastly, as already highlighted earlier, you can also use the cloud platform as your FES, as your FES, sorry. All you need to do is just install a cloud connector in between your backend and the cloud. Okay, now the question is, what are my hardware or software requirements? For the hardware, the starting point is, of course, determining what specs you need to produce or you need to of a server that you need to buy. You can go to SAP's Quick Sizer, which comes in Classic for any DB and HANA version. The link is shown below. This is the shortcut, the quick link. And here you can ask your basis guy to talk to your functional team and determine how many users do you think will be using the system or the Fiori apps, which ones, and then activity types, and so on. And then ultimately, when you are done with filling up the required fields, you will click, oh, it's not shown here, but there's a button here to calculate the results. And then the output of this is a result that gives you the SAP's equivalent of your requirement, along with memory and disk recommendations. Now, having gotten that, your next step will be either to forward the results to your hardware provider. Typically, they have a conversion factor for the SAP's result, and they will give you a recommendation on the hardware specs. Or you can have more research by going to SAP's benchmarks site to compare the SAP's result to the list of the hardware that the platforms configurations that they have certified, and then see if any of those are fit to your requirement, or if you have already those spare servers somewhere that meet the requirements. But of course, if you are running on HANA, you should also consider, you will run on HANA, you should also consider the supported hardware list, whether you want to run in an appliance or use the TDI setup. Okay, so now we have covered the hardware part. The next question is, how about the software? Now you go back to the aforementioned Fiori Apps Library site. Search for the apps that you're interested in. In this example, I have picked POs. Okay. As you can see, this page will show you what the required backend product is for your app, which line of business this app is used, its type or transactional, and then what database this runs on. In this case, the chosen app runs on HANADB only. And then form factor, it shows desktop, phone, and tablet. So it means all options showed earlier are applicable for this app. Sometimes you'll only see desktop, sometimes desktop and phone only. This depends on the application. And it's possible that they are not currently being supported, but in a higher version, they will be supported. All you need to do is just keep on checking back to this site for updates. Now, at the lower part of this screen, you will see that there's also the implementation information. It will show you first what SAP notes to apply and so on. But in the next slide, let me focus on installation requirements. If you plan to install the front end and the back end separately, these are what you need to download and install. First, for the front end, download this product version, SAP Fiori for S/4HANA 1909. Apply this package, support package, SPS2. And then make sure that you have the following components. And for the back end, this is what you need to apply, install, S/4HANA 1909, SPS2, version, S4 Core 104, SP, support package 2. But if you are going for an embedded setup, you will install all of these rather in just one SID. Okay, now that you have determined what software do you need, of course, the next step will be to download the software. To help you with that, you use the SAP Maintenance Planner portal. There's a link to, all you need to do is go to your SAP One Support Launchpad and click on the tile that says Maintenance Planner. Okay. You click on Plan a New System or Plan for S/4HANA. And then after clicking these tiles, you will be brought to a screen where it asks you what you want to install or what system do you want to update. And then as you go along, the system will help you pick the software patches or installers that you need to download. And then it comes at the end, you will be asked to download the accompanying text files, and XML files. Those XML files are important because during installation or patching of your system, the installer, or we call it the software upgrade manager, SUM, or the software provisioning manager, SWPM, will ask for those XML files. Some people will say that, well, I can just download, since I got the info from the previous site about what patches do I need, I can just go to SAP's download site directly and pick and download. That is possible, but you won't have the XML file that you will need later on. So it's still recommended to go to this route. By the way, if some of you have already heard of Maintenance Optimizer, this one is a successor. MOPS is not available anymore, but it's replaced by Maintenance Planner. Okay. Now that all those 4 burning questions have been answered, if you are if you need our help, of course we can help you. As mentioned earlier, we have services that we can offer to you from conception to implementation and deployment. Our implement team can help you. Our AMS team can help you. Our solution architects can help you. You just have to reach out to us, and then we will guide you along the way from implementing the prerequisites, to sending to SAP, to reviewing the results, and helping you decide what else to implement aside from the SAP's recommendation. And then we can help you implement and activate those apps. And we'll even provide support to you as you are running those Fiori apps. All you need to do is just reach out to us. In fact, using these tools will already help a manufacturing company to decide what Fiori apps to activate during the process of their conversion to S4HANA, which we also were a part of. So please, let us help you in your own Fiori journey. We will be with you all the way. Thank you very much.